Roblox Doors is a game that needs no explanation. After all, it was one of the biggest horror games on Roblox at its peak. Doors has spawned so many Roblox games similar to it that you might as well call Doors a genre of Roblox games. Out of all of the games similar to Doors, one game seems to stand out the most. Pressure. It is a game similar to Doors, but executed so perfectly that some people even consider it better than Doors. Because of this, I decided to check out the game for myself, and in this video, I will give my honest opinion about Roblox Pressure. But first, what is Pressure? Roblox Pressure was created on February 7, 2023. However, it began gaining popularity about 3 weeks ago. Why? I actually have no idea. Everyone just likes this snake abomination, I guess. Anyway, Pressure shares similar traits to every Doors fan game. You walk around collecting random stuff from drawers or whatever, and you must get to a certain door while silly billies like this nice guy over here try to murder in totally the most humane ways possible. The game takes place in an underwater research facility owned by Urban Shade, as you are a convict, and coming down there was the only way to avoid your death sentence. Down there, you are tasked to collect data, which seems to be a currency in this game, and hit room 115, where you will then retrieve a crystal by swimming around some weird and confusing place and win. Seems pretty easy, but it's not. Right now, Pressure just seems like a normal Doors fan game, so what is so good about Pressure anyways? Well, let's get into that now. Making a good horror game is definitely gonna be tough. You have to make something scary while not forgetting the fact that it's a game, and add action. A great example of a horror game like that is Piggy, a game with too much action and very little scares. Doors fan games like Pressure are extremely good at keeping this balance, creating a scary environment while having lots of action. This isn't easy to do for games like Doors and its fan games, who exist on a very simple concept, which is just opening doors for the next 30 minutes of the game. Obviously, opening doors isn't scary, so games have to often work extremely hard to ensure that the game is actually creepy and unsettling. Roblox games actually have another limiting factor. They cannot be so scary because Roblox is a platform that is willing to include kids who can't even say their first words yet. Because of this, Roblox is gonna take down any game that would make your average 2-year-old cry. Creating an unsettling atmosphere while not going over the Roblox guidelines is extremely hard, and Pressure is good at doing just that. It scares you with the tiniest things. How does it do that? Well, being put in an abandoned underwater research facility haunted by failed experiments who roam the area is already pretty unsettling. The creatures and many horrific entities often resembling fish scared my soul to hell. This game is giving me Still Wakes the Deep vibes, and I love it and I hate it at the same time. The many creatures in this game are far more aggressive than monsters in other games, often forcing you to face them head on. For example, Infestation. He's basically an annoying mutated shark that makes you take damage when you're looking at him. Worst part is, he forces your screen to face him, and often it makes my character look like he's fighting his inner demons. This difficulty ramping isn't actually all that good for horror games though. You see, the more a player dies in these games, the more they get used to the creepy atmosphere. A difficult environment often just makes the game turn stale fast, and no longer produces that huge amount of excitement anymore. The worst part is, the Doors genre is all about dying, respawning, learning how to counter the monsters, rinse and repeat. The game gets stale after a few times, and the future of this game could end up like Doors, a game that's dead. The reason these games end up dying so quickly is because when the games do this type of stuff, players will get bored of the game quickly and forces quicker updates. Games in the Doors genre have never seemed to have been able to keep up with this demand, and therefore causing them to die. Luckily, Pressure seems to have been one of the most well put together Doors fan games out there, as it not only has a creepy atmosphere, it adds many cool details for players to figure out and items players can use for more diverse gameplay. One example of a cool detail is the imaginary friend. It spawns when you press on a toy remote. This remote will spawn the imaginary friend, and it will stay on one side of your screen menacingly the entire round till you die. This friend does offer some advantages, as she helps alert you that a node monster has spawned. Node monsters are monsters that quickly dash through the hallway, destroying any light and door in its path. These monsters might seem like Rush, but they are much harder to deal with. For example, these monsters will have a set spawn timer, spawning if players stay in one room for too long. They will also attack from the front room sometimes, giving players less cues and time to react. Even worse, in the Ridge, rooms 100 to 115, they will spawn a lot more frequently, and this time not even offering a lights flicker cue. The imaginary friend will shout, "What's that noise?" And that's such an obvious sound cue that players will have a hard time being jumped by the nodes. Another cool detail is Infestation will get mad if you use this weird flash beacon on it, and his pull will get stronger. So, just don't use the beacon, I guess. Speaking of items, Pressure also offers alternative items to use in order to spice up your gameplay. For example, there are 5 different types of light sources. Flashlights, who are your most common obtainable light source that lights a circle ahead of you. Lanterns, who light an area around you. Blacklight, a light source used to not spawn Mr. Onlyfans. Flash beacon, a light source that annoys Infestation and lights up the entire room for a limited amount of time while having 20 uses. And hand-cranked flashlight, a flashlight that can be charged by cranking it, but lasts a shorter period of time. These flashlights can be used to make darker rooms unique experiences, but at the end of the day, flashlights are all light sources. The game is a living nightmare without one. Because of this, the game allows you to hold 5 batteries at a time, and these batteries could be plugged into your flashlight at any time. So if you really like flashing Infestation, you can use a battery to gain 6 charge on your beacon back. Yay! Anyway, the game's items aren't restricted to flashlights. There are medkits, items that heal a significant amount of health, and other secret items, like the Gummy Light, which is just a hand-crank flashlight but more nostalgic, I guess. Anyway, it's time to talk about something Pressure does that's better than any horror game on Roblox. Adding lore.
Nice.
The atmosphere and the design of the game sparks many questions. What happened to the black site? Why are they willing to sacrifice lives to obtain this crystal? Why does Sebastian want to help us unlike the other monsters? Heck, even death seems to be questionable. You see, Sebastian will tell you that when you die you will be brought to this little room once you have died for the first time. Why do we get transported there? Sebastian will usually then pull out the file about the entity that killed you, and it sometimes will contain some background information about the entity. For example, if we read Infestation's file we find out that he's a bull shark used in some experiment. The more you die in this game to the entity, the more lore you get on it. How Sebastian is able to see you during death is still a mystery, but one weird thing is, you can pay the ferryman to revive you. This could be a reference to the Greek mythology underworld ferryman Charon, who brings you to the underworld once you're dead. Bribing the ferryman could possibly mean for him to bring you back to your original body, and that's quite an interesting detail. I don't know the complete story or all the lore on this game, so I heavily recommend for you guys to play the game and figure it out on your own. Let's talk a little bit more about Sebastian. He is probably the most mysterious monster in the game, and that's actually really cool. When we find him in the shop, he asks for us to hand over data we've collected in exchange for items we can use. We have no idea why he needs the data, and it's very interesting. In the Mindscape room, we are able to grab a file different from the rest. When we try to read it, Sebastian snatches from our hands. Why aren't we allowed to look at this file? It's a mystery, and makes everyone question Sebastian even more. Sebastian's personality is shown very clearly when he guides us when we're dead, and I personally think having a personality is already better than the guiding lights indoors. Instead of just telling us how to beat them, he makes sassy remarks, which are sometimes really funny. Anyway, let's talk about the music. This is a part of the game that everybody seems to like. You see, horror games often make their music sound old and creepy in order to emphasize the scariness in the game. However, that is easier said than done. Pressure does an extremely good job at making music that implies the mood they want, and I love it. For example, when you first get into the black site, the music played does a great job at creating a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling that this is a one-way trip, and you might not ever see the light of day again. When you are being looked at by Infestation, a stressful and scary mood is implied as you desperately try to fight back against the shark to not look at him. Songs are one of the key things that make a horror game scary and exciting, and Pressure makes music that helps extremely well. Anyway, let's conclude the video. Personally, I believe Pressure is one of the most well put together games on Roblox, and I heavily recommend you guys to play it. Messing around with Sebastian is one of the greatest things to do in that game, and I'm sure you guys will enjoy it too. Anyway, thanks for watching. I have an idea for a monster they should add that I would like to share, and it's Skibbity.